Prehistoric Earth was not a gentle place. The further back we travel in time, the more alien and violent the world becomes. Towering predators, colossal herbivores, oceans ruled by monsters, and landscapes that punished weakness without mercy. It's easy to romanticize the past, to imagine what it might be like to witness dinosaurs or Ice Age giants firsthand. But if there truly were a button that could send you back permanently, pressing it would be a terrible idea, because survival back then wasn't about comfort or luck. It was about endurance. Some fossils don't just tell us how animals lived, they tell us how much pain they endured, and the most astonishing examples aren't the animals that died in battle, frozen in dramatic final moments. The real legends are the ones that were maimed, broken, infected, and disfigured, yet lived on anyway. These are the most brutal prehistoric injuries ever survived. We begin in the late Cretaceous seas with a predator that quite literally lost its face. The animal was Prognathodon, a massive mosasaur related to the iconic Mosasaurus, growing up to 12 meters long and heavier than some whales. It was one of the ocean's top predators, armed with crushing jaws, thick conical teeth, and a temperament that made even other mosasaurs potential prey. And that matters because one specimen discovered in the Netherlands, known as NHMM 201,272, shows signs of a truly horrifying encounter. Large sections of its upper jaw were gone. Entire chunks of bone had been torn away, the premaxilla, parts of the maxilla, and surrounding cortical bone. This wasn't decay. This was trauma. Something powerful had bitten its face clean. Imagine losing your upper jaw in the wild. No medical care, no antibiotics, constant exposure to seawater, and instead of hands, flippers. For most animals, this would be an immediate death sentence, but not for this one. The fossil shows clear signs of healing: bone regrowth, tissue repair. The mosasaur survived for months, possibly over a year after the attack. That survival came with intense inflammation, nerve damage, dead tissue from restricted blood flow, and eventually a severe bacterial infection. Ironically, it wasn't the missing face that killed it. It was starvation, once infection made jaw movement impossible. That mosasaur lived long enough to heal from having its face torn apart. Certified prehistoric menace, but survival doesn't stop there. If there were a crown for endurance, few would challenge Tyrannosaurus rex. One of the most famous specimens, Stan, tells a story of constant violence. Discovered in 1987, Stan was riddled with injuries. Bite marks from another T-Rex pierced his skull and ribs deep enough to penetrate the brain case. That alone would cause severe trauma or death in nearly any animal alive today. But Stan didn't stop there. Another bite fractured the base of his skull, effectively breaking his neck. Somehow, it healed, though imperfectly. Vertebrae fused, excess bone formed. Chronic pain likely followed him for life. He also suffered broken ribs, facial wounds, jaw trauma, and even parasitic infections that ate into his skull bones. Despite all of this, Stan continued hunting, defending territory, and surviving, eventually dying, not from injury, but old age, at around 24 years. And yet, Stan wasn't even the toughest T-Rex. That honor likely belongs to Sue. Sue's skeleton reads like a medical textbook of prehistoric suffering. A damaged shoulder blade, torn tendons, multiple broken ribs, fused vertebrae, massive infections, gout, arthritis, and a tail so damaged it barely functioned properly. Her left fibula ballooned from infection. Parasites likely bored holes into her jaw while she was still alive. And despite all of that, Sue reached full size, over 12 meters long, weighing up to 14 tons. She lived to approximately 33 years old, the longest-lived T-Rex ever discovered. Pain didn't stop her. Age did. But dinosaurs weren't alone in this kind of resilience. One of the toughest individuals ever discovered wasn't a dinosaur at all, it was a Neanderthal. Shanidar 1, nicknamed Nandi, lived roughly 45 to 65,000 years ago. His skeleton tells a story of suffering almost impossible to comprehend. Early in life, he suffered a devastating blow to the head, likely from violence. The impact shattered his eye socket, blinded him in one eye, and caused a traumatic brain injury that affected motor control. His right arm and leg withered, possibly from paralysis or disease. His arm was later fractured multiple times and eventually lost, possibly amputated. Both legs were broken at different times. His foot fractured, he limped. He was partially deaf due to bone growth blocking his ears. His teeth were worn down from using them as tools, causing constant pain. He suffered from a debilitating skeletal disease that caused stiffness and chronic discomfort. By all logic, Nandi should have died young. Instead, he lived to around 45 years old, an elder for his time. He survived because others cared for him. His survival is one of the strongest pieces of evidence for empathy and cooperation in Neanderthals. He couldn't hunt effectively. He couldn't contribute physically. He lived because he mattered. And this pattern of care extends even into the animal kingdom. At the Labrie tar pits, thousands of injured predators have been found, but one Smilodon, Fatalis, stands above the rest, a saber-toothed cat with a severely deformed pelvis, likely caused by a congenital defect that destroyed the hip joint from birth. For an ambush predator that relied on powerful hind legs to bring down megafauna, this should have been fatal early in life, but it wasn't. This Smilodon lived to adulthood, which strongly suggests it was cared for, likely fed by a social group. Alone, it could never have survived, and dinosaurs, they weren't done surprising us either. In Hell Creek, an adult Edmontosaurus was found with a massive chunk of its skull missing. The damage was deep, violent, and unmistakably caused by a T-Rex bite. Bone, skin, and possibly an eye were torn away. And yet, the bone healed. The dinosaur survived a direct headshot from the most powerful bite in terrestrial history. Then there's Big Al, the most famous Allosaurus ever found. Over the course of his life, Big Al suffered at least 19 major injuries: fractured ribs, infections, punctured bones, broken tail, fused vertebrae, and a badly damaged foot. That final foot injury became infected. The bone began to rot. Big Al could no longer hunt, and for once, the injuries won. Even so, Big Al lived far longer than expected. And finally, perhaps the most absurd survival story of Ola, massive Triassic phytosaur, found with injuries to all 4 limbs. Broken, infected, damaged repeatedly over time. Yet it survived for months, possibly years, likely aided by its semi-aquatic lifestyle and slow metabolism. For crippled limbs, still alive, these fossils tell us something profound. Prehistoric life wasn't just about dominance, it was about endurance. Pain was constant. Injury was expected. Survival meant pushing forward no matter the cost. These animals didn't just live in a brutal world, they endured it, and that may be the most metal thing of all.